In this video, I'm going to be going over 5 of what I consider to be some of the most overrated boots on the entire market. Now, not all of these boots are necessarily bad, but I just think that there's some better options for the money. So if you do wear any of these, trust me, I'm not going after you. And if you disagree or you have some other boots that you think are overrated, be sure to let me know what you think in the comments below. And as we go through this list, I'm also going to give you some alternatives that I think might be better options, and I'll have those linked in the description below where you can find them on sale with discount codes. And with the first boot in our list, we have the Umbro Velocita. Now, I mentioned that not all of the boots in the list that we're going to go over are bad, but this one is just bad. Almost everything about this boot I just don't like. Down to the design itself, I think that they're trying to go for something a little bit flashy with the contrast between the black and neon. Honestly, it's not the worst colorway I've ever seen, but once you move past just the aesthetics of the boot, you get to what might be one of the most uncomfortable uppers I've ever tried on. It almost feels like a cross between sandpaper and cardboard. It's pretty tough to describe. It's extremely rigid on feet, has almost no give, flexibility, or stretch whatsoever. Even the mesh material that they've tried to put throughout the midfoot area almost doesn't even have a give or a stretch to it, which is honestly pretty impressive for a mesh material to be this inflexible. And then once you go beyond that, I mean, the toe box is extremely rigid, it's very narrow, and the flex of the sole plate is kind of weird as well. Look at that, it bends kind of in the heel area, which is just not how your foot works. And to be fair, I'm not really sure how many people are rating this boot highly to begin with, but I know someone that's rating the boot highly, and that's Umbro themselves, because the Umbro Velocita here retails for $275, putting it on par with some of the most expensive boots on the entire market and expensive as any of the other options on this list. So in a sense, it's almost the worst of both worlds because it's really uncomfortable and it's too expensive. And it's funny because on this channel, we talk a lot about boots that punch above their weight, being maybe under $100, but feeling a little bit more premium, whereas this boot is just the complete opposite. Now, all of that being said, I still actually think the Umbro is a pretty cool company and they've made some decent boots in the past. So I do hope that this is a low point from them and it's only going to be up from here, and maybe we'll get some better releases in the coming years. But at this point in time, honestly, any other football boot, including the other boots on this list, are going to be a better option than the Umbro Velocita. God, I haven't even held these boots in so long because I hated them the first time I tried them on, but I'm finding new things that I don't like. I mean, even the heel liner is so thin, it may as well not even be there, and the back of the boots are just so rigid. I just remember wearing these, getting pressure points at the back of my foot, the front of my foot, and on the top of the ankle. God, it's honestly just giving me nightmares. Maybe the only good thing you could say about this boot is that it's unique, but unfortunately, it's just unique for all of the wrong reasons. And next up on our list, we have the only leather football boot that's in this discussion, and that's going to be the Copa Pure 2 from Adidas. Now, these boots retail for around $230, and when I tried them on for the first time, they really weren't that bad, but to me, they just aren't what leather football boots are supposed to be about. To start off, the entire upper isn't actually made of leather. There is going to be some calf leather towards the toe box, but throughout the midfoot, it's actually going to be blended with a synthetic, and so you don't really get that full feeling of natural leather throughout the entire boot. And while I do like the elasticated knit material that runs around the collar and on top of the midfoot, I find that the leather itself doesn't actually feel that premium, and you can find higher quality leather on more affordable options, such as the Nike Premier 3, as well as the Copa Gloro that Adidas sells for around $100. And then some of my biggest issues lie beneath the boot with the torsion frame outsole. I've pretty much always found this outsole to just be a little bit too narrow for me, and I honestly think it's going to be pretty narrow for most people, and that makes sense because the sole plate is coming from an older Adidas Nemesis model that was a really slim speed boot. Now, usually when I think of leather football boots, I think of ones that are more relaxed, have a plush, soft upper, and usually a traditional lacing system that give you plenty of width. But with the Copa Pure 2, you just get much more of a snug, narrow fit that some players are going to be a fan of, but unfortunately, it just didn't work for me. That being said, you can often find this boot on sale now that it's been released for over 6 months or so. So if you can pick it up for well under $200 or around $180, it actually is a pretty decent deal. Then next up on our list, it really breaks my heart to say this, but we have the Mizuno Alpha. Now, as a whole, Mizuno rarely ever put a foot wrong. They are such an amazing company, and they consistently come out with some of the best boots on the market, and all things considered, the Mizuno Alpha is a decent speed boot. But unfortunately, in comparison to the rest of their stellar line, and in comparison to some of the competitors on the market, the Alpha seems like a slight misstep to me. The inner liner of the boot and the tongue feel pretty plasticky and cheap. And while the upper does feature a slick, razor-thin synthetic material, it's not really doing anything to set itself apart from other boots in that category. I'm talking about existing speed boots that are really popular, like the Vapor 15 from Nike, as well as the Crazy Fast from Adidas. And another big bummer for me when I tried these on for the first time is that they also were more narrow in the toe box compared to all of the other Mizunos I had tried in the past. And that's a big shame, because for me, that's usually one of the benefits of going with Mizuno, is that they tend to have wider toe boxes, but that's just not the case with the Alpha. The most notable thing I did like about the Alpha was the sole plate, which I thought was really aggressive and great for both use on firm ground and artificial grass. But to be honest, if you want a great speed boot from Mizuno, they already have one, and it's not called the Mizuno Alpha, it's called the Morelia Neo 4 Beta. This version here is going to retail for roughly the same price as the Mizuno Alpha. It's going to have better build quality and feel a lot more comfortable on feet. Not to mention, you also get really soft kangaroo leather throughout the toe box. And if you're looking for something even simpler from Mizuno, you can just go with the Morelia 2 that has a full kangaroo leather upper and a traditional lacing system. Then next up on our list, this might make some people mad, but I have the Nike Phantom GX2. Now, I actually had a lot of fun playing in the Phantoms when I first got them out of the box and onto the field, and I gotta say the upper with these is truly unique. I've never felt anything quite like this grip knit material before. It's extremely sticky, gives you so much traction and grip on the ball, and you can really feel that when you're hitting your shots and dribbling. Of course, that really sticky upper isn't going to be for everyone, but I do think it's cool for the people that actually want it. For me, the main downfall of the GX2 is going to be the sole plate, specifically the Cyclone 360 stud configuration that's in the forefoot. Now, we first saw that stud configuration released by Nike when the Phantom Luna came out roughly a year ago. And it didn't make a lot of sense then, and it still doesn't make much sense now. Now, Nike have come out and said throughout their marketing that this cyclone pattern that's somewhat circular in nature is designed to reduce rotational traction and could therefore have an impact on lowering injuries. Now, considering the rise in ACL injuries, especially among women's football, this is a pretty huge and very serious claim to make, and I haven't seen any concrete data from Nike to back that up. And if you do want to reduce rotational traction, there's actually a much simpler solution, and that's just to use conical studs. Because we know that conical studs are always going to allow for more free rotation compared to sharper bladed studs. And yet, what do we see with the cyclone pattern on the Phantom GX2? It's just a circular configuration of sharp, aggressive bladed studs. And I can at least attest from personal experience playing with these boots, they do feel just as aggressive, if not more aggressive, than other firm ground boots that I've used. And until Nike shows a little bit more data to back up their claims, I think it's a slightly misleading marketing tactic on their part. But with all of that being said, Nike actually do offer a safer and less aggressive sole plate that you can pair up with the Phantom GX2. All you have to do is go online and get the AG version. And with that AG variation, instead of that Cyclone 360 pattern that's going to be in the front of the boot, you're just going to have this cluster of smaller conical studs. So if you are interested in getting a pair of the new Phantoms, I would recommend going with the AG sole plate, just because I think it's much more suitable for a variety of playing surfaces. And finally, with the last boot on our list, I think people will be most upset with me for this one. It's the Adidas Predator Elite. Now, first things first, I really wanted to love these boots, mostly just because I think they look so good. But when I first got them and tried them on, I have to admit, I was a little bit underwhelmed. I thought the upper was just a little bit too thick, rubbery, and didn't provide much sensitivity on feet. And that also left the toe box feeling pretty rigid as well. And while the V-shaped lacing system was a pretty cool touch aesthetically, it actually didn't allow for a lot of adjustability throughout the football boot, leading to a more narrow, claustrophobic fit. And honestly, while not quite as stylish, the Predator Accuracy that was released a couple years ago was actually a more comfortable football boot in my opinion. I did like the added touch of the rubber elements on the side of the boot to give you a little bit more grip on your shots, but at the end of the day, it wasn't enough to win me over. Also, charging an extra $30 for a variation of the boot just to get the fold over tongue is a little ridiculous, especially considering that for less than half the price of the Predator Elite, you can get the Copa Gloro here, which is going to give you that retro design and a much more comfortable fit. I felt that these boots were more created to appeal to nostalgia than anything else. And while they do look great, as I already mentioned, how a boot feels on feet is always going to be more important than their aesthetics. But the Predator line fluctuates so much from release to release that I have no doubt we'll be seeing another great option come on the market soon enough. And that is gonna do it for this list. So guys, let me know in the comments if you've tried on any of these boots and if you agree with me or disagree with me. And also, if you feel there are any other boots that are overrated, let me know as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.